Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maya. If you've never been here before, hit that subscribe button down below and welcome. Today would normally be the video for Drag Queens Choose My TBR for April, but my birthday is in April, so I have decided to let myself read whatever I want this month within certain boundaries, and then next month we'll be back with the Drag Queens, and I'm gonna change up some of the rules a little bit because I'll be done school, and then I can like throw in some fun twists with more books and maybe some punishments and things like that. So before we dive into the readathons and everything that I'm doing for April, even though I'm not choosing a TBR, a solid TBR with cards, let's talk about the March. So before we jump into what I read for March, I want to talk about the book that I read right at the end of February, so it never made it into my March wrap up, and that was Catch and Cradle by Katia Rose. So this was my first book by her. I loved the lacrosse idea and it looked really cute, so I picked it up on Kindle Unlimited because I had a little bit of time. And I gave it 5 stars. I loved it, and now I'm like obsessed with Katia, and you'll see in future parts of this video what I mean. But anyway, also apologies if the lighting is changing. I'm using natural light and it's very cloudy today. So anyway, yeah, I read this book super fast, 2 days, gave it 5 stars. Basically the premise is, well, 2 different points of view. So we have one girl they both go to the University of Nova Scotia and they play on the lacrosse team, and the one girl is like recently come out, she's looking to date girls, and then the other one has dated girls in the past, but she actually dated a teammate and it kind of like all went downhill, and so they kind of end up falling for each other, but then they are trying to navigate that with the fact that they have a team rule that's like you can't date teammates. So anyway, super cute if you're looking for like a great lesbian or like queer rep romance that's super short and really easy to get through and on Kindle Unlimited. Check that one out. Now onto March. So for some reason I cannot find, yet again, one of my cards. Miss Evie Oddly is missing. So the first one that I read this month, I can't find my copy of, and I can't find the card. So maybe they're together. But that was Kill Them All by Pasha Mala, and this was the To Fill the Prompt Horror, which is Evie Oddly's prompt. This book, probably the worst book I've read all year so far. Oh, like I can't even describe it. I've like tried to put it out of my brain because it's so strange, so uncomfortable. The premise is this man loves local malls and he gets invited to go and live in his local mall and spend half his time like just living and interacting with people in the mall and half his time making work. So working on his progress report that he needs to give to whoever like owns the mall once a week. But then he kind of starts to realize that like nobody really comes to the mall and nobody really works at the mall, and there are all these weird things happening. If you don't like hair in general, this is a no. This is a no. It is really creepy. It's just weird. And the ending is very ambiguous. And basically I wish that I could talk to the author one-on-one because I'd like to understand where he was going with this, because supposedly it's this great metaphor for consumerism, but nobody that I have seen talk about it can seem to figure out what the metaphor is and why.
Why?
Just why? And I just want to know, like, was he high? Like, how did he come up with this? So that was a 2-star read. Not a fan, but we finally fulfilled the horror prompt, so that one can go into the bag if I ever find it. For those of you who are new, if a card's prompt is filled, it goes into the bag, and if not, it goes back into the deck to be redrawn. The next book that I read was in contrast, one of the best books that I read all year, and that was The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And that was to fulfill Electra's prompt, which is the underdog. So this is the sequel to the Inheritance Games. I gave this one 5 stars. I was concerned that it wouldn't be as good as the first one, but it was. And because I gave the first one 5 stars, I couldn't like give this one a higher rating, but know that I actually appreciated it more than the first. The premise of the entire series, if you haven't heard of it, this girl, Avery, inherits the fortune of this man that she has never met in her life, and she has to go and live in his like billion-dollar mansion in order to inherit the fortune. And that's complicated by the fact that his family still lives there, including his 4 grandsons. And they kind of start to figure out that maybe her inheriting the fortune is a riddle or a game left by their grandfather. And then this is kind of a continuation of that. I felt like I finally got a little bit more you know, development of the characters, as you often do in a sequel. And so yeah, I really liked it. I did a whole reading, I talked about it in a reading vlog, so I'll link that up above. You can see my direct reactions, but I just have such a soft spot in my heart for this series, and I'm not ready for it to end this year when the 3rd one comes out. So Miss Electra can go in the bag. Next I got an arc of Katya Rose's book, new release, The Devil Wears Tartan. And so I slotted that one in, and I'm gonna give like a quick review. I also left a review on the Goodreads and on my Instagram, but this book was so good. I didn't give it 5 stars. I think I gave it 4.5 or 4, because there was just a few things I didn't like as much as Catch and Cradle. But the premise of the book is these 2 girls have been Highland dancers their entire lives, and they always competed against each other, and they were like the top dancers. Then they stopped dancing, they went to university, and now a scholarship has been created that's bringing them back to dance against each other because they both need the money for different things. And surprisingly, it is enemies to lovers, and the setting is so cute. Like, Highland dance is so unique, and I loved both characters. I really understood both of their motivations and their reasonings behind certain decisions that they made, certain choices throughout the book. There were a few things that just didn't flow for me as well. And there was the odd time that I was like, I don't know where this is going. But as with the last one, I cried, I laughed, I loved it. So again, I talked a little bit about that in another vlog, which I'll link above, but I really enjoyed that one. But it didn't fill any prompts for my TBR game because it was an additional book. So thank you to Story Origin and Katya Rose's team for sending me an arc, because it was my first arc. It was so cool. Okay, next I read Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner. This was the Spicing Up My 20s book club pick, but it had been on my TBR for a while, so I was excited to get to it. And I picked this for the romance prompt, which is Vanessa Vanjie Mateo, and I completed it, so Vanessa can go in the bag. Not my favorite romance this year. Not overly high on my list of romances that I liked. The premise is a showrunner and her assistant have like a complicated relationship. They go to the red carpet together, they get photographed together, and shockingly, despite the fact that Hollywood almost entirely assumes that women who are dating are good friends and not dating, the press believes that they are in a relationship and starts kind of like hounding them about it. And through this rumor, they kind of realize that like maybe they do like each other, but there are a whole bunch of other scenarios that are happening. If you're planning on reading this book, skip ahead like 20 seconds, but I'm telling you, the characters get together here. 300 pages into a 320-page book. That's not a romance. Like, and it's not even a good slow burn. It's just the author trying to justify the characters having enough chemistry that they can date at the end of the book. So there were some cute characters in here, some cute situations, but overall just a lot of nothing. And we talked about this last night at book club, a lot of plot devices and scenarios created to move the plot along that appeared to be important and were never resolved. So not a fan. I hope that Meryl Wilsner's next book is better. I don't have high hopes for them as an author that I'm going to like, but to each their own. And then lastly, for the TBR, the last prompt was Acid Betty, which is a hardcover, and I originally picked Ace of Spades for this prompt, but I just didn't feel like reading it. So I didn't read Ace of Spades, but by tomorrow, hopefully, I will have finished Willful Blindness by Margaret Heffernan, and this is a hardcover. So it still counts for the prompt. So barring any last minute changes, Acid Betty will be fulfilled. This book is a nonfiction about how we ignore certain things in favor of other things, why we're so drawn to people who are similar to us, and like the literal brain pathways that make it harder for us to see information that is not what we want to see. I'm a good 100 pages in. It's actually quite short and I'm loving it so far. You can see by all the stickies, but this is from the library, so I will have to take some notes on it later. But I'm really enjoying this, so this should finish out my reading for March and check off that hardcover prompt. So those were the 5 books that I read in March. I was also competing, well, not competing, but I was also doing the Taylor Swift Tis the Damn Readathon. You can see my little spread for it here, and I did complete it. So I'll tell you that for the Taylor Swift album, I posted a photo of books. I post a photo of books all the time, so that was easy. For Speak Now, the prompt was a book in a trilogy, and I read Hawthorne Legacy. For Fearless, it was a YA, and I read Hawthorne Legacy. For Lover, it was a 5-star prediction, and I read Hawthorne Legacy. For Morally Grey Character, which was 1989, I read Kill Them All. And for non-romance romance, which was Reputation, I read Hawthorne Legacy. And then Folklore was a recommendation from someone, which was something to talk about because I saw that on TikTok. And then Evermore was a mystery or thriller, and I used the Hawthorne Legacy for that. So we did it! I'm very proud of myself. I know I overlapped a lot of books, but what you gonna do? Oh, and I don't think I said red. Did I say red? Yeah. Oh, for red, it was red on the cover, and that was Devil Wears Tartan. Okay, I think my camera's gonna overheat, but let's talk about what is coming up for the month of April. So I'm not playing my TBR game, but I am joining Realmathon, which is hosted by Covers with Cassidy. Love her channel, go check her out. This is like the most comprehensive readathon that I've ever been a part of. It's insane how much work she put into it. Essentially what happens, and I'll leave her video link down below because there are so many instructions, but there are 4 different realms on this island, and you choose your realm. So my realm is Bayle, which is like a forestry area. Who are my captains? I'll leave my captains are like team leads on the screen. Oh, I think it's Becca and the books and Eleanor reads, I think. Anyway, our subgenre is fantasy romance. You'll see why I chose this team in a bit. And the way that it works is books can either take away points or add points. So if you choose the prompts that take away points, you apply them to the 2 neighboring realms of your realm. And if you add the points, then that gives your realm power. So one book can work for up to 5 prompts, but they all have to be from either the negative side or the positive side. So obviously I'm gonna try and get at least 1 fantasy romance on here, which is why I chose this team. But the prompts are diverse enough that if you're not reading fantasy, you can still fit things in. So any book that is fantasy romance gets us plus 10 points. And so the first book that I'm going to be starting with for, well, not starting, but the first book that I plan to read is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. ACOTAR is like the most popular fantasy romance right now, I think, and I just need to keep going in this series. So this is the 3rd book, Guys, it is chunky. Like this one is 700 pages. So yeah, but I read these ones very fast because I love these characters, and I've explained this book series so many times on my channel that you probably know what the plot is, but anyway, this is the third one. So this will definitely check out fantasy romance. I also wrote down some of the other prompts that it's applicable to. And then whichever one, yeah, so we're gonna go with positive points for our team on this because that will give me 15 points. That one for sure. Then I have 2 books that I need to fit in my TBR this month for book clubs. The first one is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, and this is for Not Wasting My 20s book club. The premise of this, I believe, is it's basically a Mulan retelling. I don't know very much about it, but I've heard really good things. But I believe it's about a warrior who is not really supposed to fight, but she takes on one of her brother's names and goes to battle anyway. So this one also matches a good number of prompts for the readathon. The next book I need to read for my book club, I haven't checked to see if it meets any of the prompts, is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is on Kindle Unlimited as well. This is for Spicing Up Your 20s book club. This is about a man who's like a modern day kind of Walt Disney, and then like a woman that he hires. I think there's like enemies to lovers. My camera overheated and we're back. So next we have the sequel to Dial A for Aunties, which is Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q Sutanto. So I read Dial A for Aunties last year and it was one of my favorite books of the year. A huge surprise. I had very low hopes going into it and I loved it. And this is the sequel. So the original premise is about a girl who is working a wedding with her 4 aunts who own a wedding company. And then there's a body and like a dead body, and then there's like a whole bunch of other like crazy things that happen. So then this is the sequel. So she is going to her own wedding now, and they ask another Chinese Indonesian family to run the wedding like they would, but then maybe the they are actually the mafia. Yes, so this will be fun. I think it'll be a really quick read. My mom read it already and she thought it was great, so I'm excited. The next one, which I think will, if I do choose to read this one this month, I think it will actually count for a good amount of prompts because it's a fantasy. And this is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. And this is a YA fantasy. It's basically about a world where people either have red blood or gold blood, and they get like a test when they turn like 16, and if they have red blood then they're allowed to just exist in society, but if they have gold then they're like ostracized. And she has gold blood, and then she's recruited by someone to join a bunch of warriors who also have gold blood. So I think it sounds super cool and I'm very excited, and it sounds like there's a sequel coming maybe later this year or next year. So that will be fun. And then the last one comes out next week, and it is my most anticipated, I would say my second most anticipated release of the year, because this one is my most anticipated, and that is Hotel Magnifique. And this one is about 2 girls who work for this magical traveling hotel, and kind of like bad things happen, I think is what happens. I'm not 100% sure on the plot. It's a new release, but the cover is beautiful. The idea of this like magic traveling hotel is just like so interesting to me, and I think that it would also fit a bunch of the prompts for the readathon. So yeah, those are a bunch of books that I'm considering reading for this month. So when we come back next month, I will recap all of the books and go over the new rules for the game, and we'll be right back into Drag Queens Choose My TBR. So I hope that you are okay with me taking this break for my birthday. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below what book you're most excited to read for April. And if you're in the Realmathon, let me know what team you're on. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!